you in advance. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. Am I good? Hey, good morning, guys. It's so awesome. Is that the warm New Hampshire welcome right there? Good morning. I love it, man. That was very warm. It was warm. Hey, it's great to be with you guys today. Chris Bell, I'm the pastor of a great church in Alabama. And I know when you think Alabama, you think, I don't know what you think actually in this area, but you probably couldn't tell by my accent that I'm not from Boston and your area, I'm sure. But you may not know this, but Alabama has some of the prettiest beaches in the world. How many of you have ever been to one of our beaches? Anyone in the room? I've got a few. Okay. We were just named best beaches in the country, Orange Beach, Gulf Shores. In my church, we actually have some campuses down there. So I don't want you to be mad at me that I'm actually on the beach, okay? I know that you're like, come on, man. But let me tell you this. Your area is beautiful. And I like to say, outside of the South, my two favorite cities that I visited, my two favorite areas are San Diego and the Boston area. And I'm not kidding. I love your area so much. I love the Northeast. And I'd never been to Nashua. And last night I was getting a hotel booked here, and I was talking to the lady, and because I thought, okay, I'd never seen the city, never seen the name, so I did not know how to pronounce it. And so I thought, well, it looks like Joshua in the Bible, so it must be Nashua. Okay? And so I kept saying, I could hear the lady kind of laughing, and finally I was like, I'm not saying it right, am I? She's like, nope, it's Nashua, okay? And then your pastor helped me with the pronunciation as well. But I do want to tell you what an honor it is. It's an absolute honor to speak for you today. And I'm a church planter at heart. I planted churches, and I was telling some of the guys with me, this just lights my heart up because I have done this before. And to watch what God's doing through the Well Church here in Nashua and Pastor Scott and your team, man, it's awesome. And just so you know, this is not normal. I don't want you to think this is normal. There are church plants all over the country. I get to speak at a lot of them. But what you have here is very unique, very unique. God is doing something really special here. And from an outsider looking in, I want you to know that I stand in the back of the room and I look at what's happening here, and I just want to tip my hat to you. God's doing great things at the Well, okay? And you can be grateful for that. And so today it's my honor to jump in and I want to talk to you about one of my favorite places in the Bible, but I think we misunderstand it. And what I'm hoping to do is I hope today to do this in a way that will help you get more out of these kind of famous verses than maybe you've gotten before. That's really what I hope. And I hope at the end of the day that you'll be able to rest, okay, in Jesus. Like when I walk out the door and get on the plane to go back to Alabama, roll tide, y'all don't even know what that means. I was told by the person that picked me up this morning, he was like, yeah, we don't care about college sports up here because you guys have real, I knew what he was saying. He was saying, we have pro sports here, okay? But I live in the land of college national championships there in Alabama, and here's what will amaze you. I'm a diehard Bama fan. Roll Tide all the way. And my oldest son just went to college, and I'll give you one guess where my son went to college. Auburn. My son went to Auburn. And if you don't know what that means he's now the prodigal son. We're not killing a fatted calf when he comes home. This is bad, all right? It's bad. I have 3 kids, Gabe, Cooper, and Gracie, beautiful wife, Nan, and so God has given us the opportunity to do ministry where we are. But I've had to learn the lesson that I hope to teach you today. I've had to learn to rest in Jesus, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not great at it. It's a lesson I have to keep learning to truly rest in the gospel, to rest in Jesus. And that's what I hope to do today. And to set us up, to get us going, I need to tell you what was happening when we read these famous verses. Because the Bible's going to tell us that on a very particular day, John, who was there and saw everything we're going to talk about, he saw it in person, and he knew what his culture understood. It's kind of like if I said something about Boston sports, you would all know it, the insider language. If you were in Alabama and there's certain things we talk about, you would be like, oh yeah, I know that. Well, there were cultural things going on here that were very obvious to the culture. So John's going to say some things that if we don't understand, we totally miss what he's saying. For instance, he's going to say, when we get to the verse in a minute, he's going to say, on that great day. And we just blow through it. We don't know what great day he's talking about. But I want to help you understand. It was called the Feast of the Tabernacles, okay? It's the Feast of the Tabernacles. And the Feast of the Tabernacles was a once a year thing. And now we understand the Jewish feast, and probably if you've been around long, you've probably heard about the Feast of the Passover. We just celebrated it Easter. It was the big one for the Jews. It was probably the most sacred in a way. But the one everybody loved the most was the Feast of the Tabernacles. Now, why did they love the Feast of the Tabernacles? Because it was a party. It was just one big week-long party, all right? Everyone had a good time. Now, we like to tailgate down in the South. Do you guys tailgate here in the Northeast? You know what I'm talking about? You go, you cook, you hang out, and all that. Okay, so that's what this was. It was like ancient tailgating. And the whole idea, it really was. And so what you do is you would go to Jerusalem. If you lived there, the rules in the city where you got to do this thing I'm about to describe for you, and the whole thing was to celebrate what God did for his people in the wilderness in the Old Testament. And it had to do with water. There was no water, and he gave them water. And so they would celebrate that at the Feast of the Tabernacles. And so at the end of the feast, there would be this big ceremony where the priest would come out and fill these cisterns with water, and then they'd come back with them, and yeah, amen, and they would pour them out, and it was this beautiful ceremony. All right, so the Feast of the Tabernacles, what they would do every year is everyone would come to town, and they would build, each family would build their own little tabernacle to honor this. This is an ancient custom that still goes on today. In fact, let me show you some pictures of what they do. So on the streets, I'm going to show you some pictures. You can barely see it, but this is what they do. They build their own little tabernacles, and it's kind of like tailgating. Like each one's decorated their own way. Here's another picture of what they do. Some are elaborate, some are less elaborate, but they do these little tabernacles. Here's another shot. So this is what the city looks like, these little boxes everywhere. And your family would have its little box, and it's kind of competitive. Who made the better box? Here's another one. This is what the city would look like all over the place, all the way back to Jesus' day. Here's a couple of more for you to see. So that's what it looks like. If you lived in Jerusalem, you would build it right there at your own home, outside your own home. And then if you were coming in, you would be just on the streets. So this was an awesome, awesome time. And that's what the Feast of the Tabernacles looked like and looks like today. Okay, so I want you to get that in your mind. The Bible's telling us that Jesus decided to go to the Feast of the Tabernacles on this particular year. So Jesus is going to go to this feast. And so for the week leading up to it, everyone partied. They had fun. They danced. They drank really great wine. They had a good time. They told stories. All of that stuff. Everything that you would do as friends and family, and the city just kept filling up. And then there would be the last day. And the last day would be what John calls that great day. And that great day is when the Feast of the Tabernacles would come to this climax, if you will, right at the end, where the big stuff would happen. And that's where we're going to pick it up. So on that day, I want you to know what happened there. On the last day, the priest would come out, and there'd be all these people everywhere. And everyone's been partying all week, but on this day, everyone got quiet. Everyone got really quiet on the last day because the priests would come out and they would have empty cisterns, these big golden cases, empty, and they would go and they would get water in them, and everyone would watch in silence. And then they would slowly, in a processional, walk those back, and they would pour them in a very sacred place. And when they poured that water out on the altar, the whole crowd, hundreds of thousands of people possibly, would begin to shout, and they would quote a verse in Isaiah. And the verse they would quote would be this. They would say, "The Lord who gave us water in the wilderness one day will give us salvation." Okay, y'all got that? So they're doing this commemorative ceremony about what God did one time that one day he's going to do in an even greater way. That's what the whole thing is about. Now you get what's going on. That's been going on all week long. And then let's go to John 7, 37 and 38. It's in your handout. And now we're going to see what this is all about. Look what it says. Everybody read those first words with me. On the last day of the feast, the great day. Everyone say the great day. Now you know what day I'm talking about, right? It's that last day. So Jesus has been there all week. And this is cool to know about Jesus. If you're new today and you're going, who is Jesus? Jesus was a real person, historical figure, and he was cool, man. Like, he wasn't weird. He had friends. He made great wine. the best, allegedly. He laughed. He cried. He was so charismatic. John was a teenager when all this happened. And at the end of his gospel, you may not know this, one of my favorite lines in the Bible. John says, when he writes the whole story of Jesus, at the end, he said, I suppose if I could keep writing, all the books in the world could not hold what Jesus did and said that I could tell you about. That's how amazing he was. So John's saying, I just told you a little bit about what we all saw and about what we all experienced. But he wanted you to know what happened on this day. So it says, on the last day of the feast, that great day, look, this is what Jesus does. Jesus stood up and he cried out. And in the original language, that means he's screaming. There's only a few other times. One other time this is used is on the cross. He cried out, it is finished, while he was crucified. Well, he did it on this day. He stands up and he cries out. And here's what he said. You may have heard these words. If anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. And that's it. And then he sat back down. Now let's talk about this for a second. First of all, I want you to understand how awkward this would have been. My middle son, Cooper, for the longest time, he's 16 now, but until he was like 10, he had a little lisp and he could not say his R's very well. And for a long time when he was little, he was hilarious. We'd be having family dinner, and he liked the word awkward. But when you pull the R's out of that, it's awkward, awkward. And so we'd be at the table, and if someone spilled something, he'd go, awkward, no R. Awkward. Or if his older brother got in trouble, he would just kind of walk through the living room and go, awkward, no R. If my son would have been there that day, he would have said very loudly, awkward. Because I need you to understand what's just happened. No one says a word when those priests are walking with those cisterns that are empty at first and then full of water. So Jesus chose that moment. That's what John wants you to understand. The moment everyone was supposed to stay quiet. The moment that was sacred. The moment that you keep your kids quiet. You make sure your dog stays still. The cat, get it out of there. Whatever you got to do. It's sacred. You don't want to mess this moment up. And Jesus stands up, and I'm sure the guys are like, what's he about to do? And he starts yelling at everyone. I'm sure the priest almost dropped the cisterns. I mean, this was a big moment. You can't miss how huge this was. It's why John wants everyone to know, and his original audience would have got it when he said it was on that day, that great day, that moment, that one. Jesus starts screaming at the top of his lungs. And here's what he basically says. He says, this thing y'all do every year where you go get the water and you talk about the fact that one day God's going to give salvation, that day is here. Jesus is saying this whole thing is about me. This is me. I'm fulfilling what you've been doing all of this time. And when he says, come and drink of me, when he says, whoever believes in me, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. That's personal. Jesus is making some pretty big claims here. And so let me tell you what he's talking about. The first thing he's talking about is this fact. You can write it down, we are physical and spiritual. Our bodies and our souls get thirsty. Jesus was talking to a very thirsty audience. How many of you have ever been really thirsty before? And I mean so thirsty like it's bad. Like you'll drink almost anything, right? There's something, they say we can go much longer without food than we can water. Your body's made up of mostly water. So it can be really hard. And what I want you to understand is Jesus was looking at a crowd who was very religious. They were still thirsty though. Because religion will leave you thirsty. How many of you love a great buffet? Like every now and then you go to a real salty buffet. When I was in college, there was this incredible Asian buffet right down the road. And it was all you could eat. And they almost changed that policy because of me and my friends. Because we would go in, and I mean, finally the guy's like, you got to go, you know? But we would always eat that and then have class in the afternoon. And I remember thinking, I'm so thirsty. Like in the middle of class, I'd be like, I got to go get a bottle of water, something. And it's because what I ate was so salty that it literally made me even more thirsty. And what Jesus is looking at is a crowd full of people who went to church. They were Jewish. They were doing all the rituals. Here they are doing another big ritual, big feast, and yet they were so thirsty because they didn't have him. They had not believed upon him yet. And what I want you to understand is your physical body gets really thirsty, but your spirit does too. You need to remember today that you are both physical and spiritual. That's how God made you. And when you become a Christian, I like to say that God gives you a new set of taste buds for your soul. Your soul gets thirsty and hungry as well. And that's why Jesus called himself today living water. In another place, he calls himself the bread of life. Because your soul, listen, your soul was created for him. Your soul was created to run on God. And here's what I want you to understand. I put in your, because I speak this sometimes to pastors like me and like Pastor Scott, but where I put the word pastors, I want you to also put Christians. Thirsty Christians are vulnerable Christians. The more thirsty you get, the more vulnerable you are. What do I mean by that? Well, I remember when I was in high school, I was playing ball, and we did these two-a-days. Do y'all do that up here in the Northeast in high school sports? Yeah, summertime, it's hot, two-a-days, and coaches love to just wear you out, man. They want to weed you out, right? And so I remember one day, our coaches, and you'd go to jail today, but this was the early 90s. If you did this, they forgot the water jugs. We're in the middle of the South, and we're out there running and doing all this stuff, and we're looking around. Where's the orange buckets? Where's the Gatorade? Where's the coolers? They forgot them. And the coach thought, yeah, we'll see who's tough now. And I mean, today, they would, helicopter moms would come in and handle all that, but it was fine back then. The good old days, right? When you could kill children with dehydration. Anyway, so I remember I'm out there and I look over and there was this tool shed where the maintenance people got their weed eaters and all that. And I noticed that outside there's a faucet with an old dirty hose. And I looked at my friends and I said, I'll tell you what's about to happen. I'm about to go get some water. And they were like, bro, don't do that. That hose has been there forever. We don't even know where that water's coming from. That's what old Johnny, the maintenance guy, washes the equipment off with. Don't do it. But I had gotten to the point where I was so thirsty that if you would have shown me a mud hole, I would have tried to get some moisture out of the thing. I was that thirsty, and I couldn't go any longer. So I walked over, and I grabbed a rusty faucet. It made noise when I turned it, and I turned it, and my friends were like, here we go. And I grabbed the nastiest looking, muddiest looking hose you've ever seen in your life. And I got it going and I stuck it to my mouth and I just consumed the nastiest water you've ever had in your life. It was coming through a nasty old plastic hose. I still to this day am not sure where the source of the water was coming from. I'm convinced it wasn't city water, but here's what I know. I know that water that I drank that day got me through the rest of that practice. 6 other kids died that day on that field, but not me. Now, what am I saying? On any other day, I wouldn't have touched that water hose. On any other day, I never would have consumed that water. But because I had let myself get so thirsty, watch this, I was willing to drink anything. And this is why it's so important. Jesus is looking at all of us today, and he's saying, if you don't learn to come to me, you're going to go to all the wrong places. And this is why you look at a couple sometimes and you go, I can't believe y'all blew your marriage up. Why did you go to that? Why did you go do that? Why did you go to him? Why did you go to her? And it's like, you let yourself get in that place and it will surprise you where you will go. We all have that ability. And this is what I want you to understand today. The thirstier you get, the lower the standard for what you will accept to drink will become. What I mean is, if you're a believer in this room today and you don't continue to drink on Jesus, you don't continue to fellowship with him, you don't continue the things of our faith that feed us and quench our thirst, then you will look somewhere for it. Your soul has needs. Your soul gets thirsty and hungry. You're going to go find that somewhere, and it will surprise you. As a pastor of 25 years now, I'm always blown away how people will come in my office and they'll say to me, I have no idea how I got here. I don't know how this addiction happened. I don't know how we blew up our marriage. I don't know how I did that at my office. I don't know how I took that money that I shouldn't have taken. The stories roll in, and everyone looks at me with this perplexed look like, I can't believe I did that. Thirsty people are vulnerable. And it'll blow your mind, the kind of faucet you'll turn and the kind of hose you'll put up to your mouth when you're thirsty enough. The answer is what Jesus is saying. Jesus says this invitation, he says, if anyone thirst. That was a rhetorical question because he knew everyone in that room was thirsty. Everyone out there was thirsty. So I love the first thing was a question. Are you thirsty? And I would say to you, the first thing you have to admit as a person for you to be satisfied in Jesus is admit you're thirsty. Admit you need him. Admit that if you don't go to Jesus, you're going to go somewhere. Admit that you desperately need what only Jesus can give you. He says, if anyone's thirsty, then the invitation, come to me and drink. We have to learn to go to Jesus. And today I want to encourage you in that. I want to encourage you that if you're coming to church, but if you're running to a lot of other places for satisfaction, and I don't mean just surfacey, I mean deep satisfaction that all humans pursue. Some of you guys in this room, you're trying to identify yourself by your success. And I promise you that well will run dry. You may make more money this year than you've ever made in your life. And at the end of the year, if you're not in Christ, you're not running to Jesus, it will be like that Asian buffet was for me. It's going to leave you thirstier than when you started. Because the next year is going to roll around. If you finally achieved something you always wanted to achieve, you're going to go, oh man, listen, I always thought if my church could just get to a certain size, I want to get in the boat with you real quick so that you don't think this guy from Alabama is just kind of talking to us. No, I'm in the boat with you. I deal with the same thing. I'm vulnerable as well. And I remember there was a time when I thought if I could get my church to 1,000 people, that'll be it. And I remember when we got to 1,000, there was a national magazine that they call Outreach Magazine. It's a thing for churches. And they flew down and wanted to do this interview. And I thought, this is what I wanted. This is awesome. They do the interview. It comes out. And I remember on the day that thing came out, I remember thinking, wonder how we get to 1,500. Seriously. And in a quiet time, the Lord, it was like he just grabbed me. He said, do you realize you're going to chase this until you drain every drop of water out of this empty well? And then maybe you'll be satisfied in me. Then maybe you'll come to me. Because you're going to keep chasing this. So now, I just wanted you to hear a little insight. I'm sure Pastor Scott never thinks that way, but me, I do. So I'm with you. I'm with you. I need to drink of Jesus or I'll go to a million different wells. But Jesus says you don't have to do that. You can be successful and work hard and do all those things, but you can find your satisfaction in me. He says, come to me and drink. That's what he says to do. Your soul, my soul, was created to live on God. You need to know that. Your soul, the deepest part of who you are, was made to live on God. He made your body to run off of water and bread. He made your soul to run off of him. That's why Jesus called himself living water and bread of life. And you go, how can a person be bread? How can a person be water? All you have to do is look at what water and bread does for your body. It nourishes you. It energizes you. It keeps you alive. And you go, oh, that's what he meant. He meant all the things connected to Jesus, his word, his truth, fellowship. All of these things are the way our souls get nourished. And there are ways like you can damage and abuse your body by putting bad things in it. I put some bad things in my body last night at an Italian place down in Boston. I got to tell you right now, it was delicious. I try to stay away from the bread, but when they brought the bread out last night in that big thing of olive oil, and I hadn't eaten in a while, it got scary for a minute there. My wife tried to grab a piece of bread, and I was like, don't grab for that bread right now. I'm going for it, okay? You know, it was hard to share. And then I think Rodney, my guy in the back, Rodney, what did we have? That was incredible. Some kind of bolognese with homemade pasta. It was basically a carbohydrate feast. Afterwards, I was more tired than when I began. You know what I mean? My body's not If I eat like that every day, that's not going to be a good situation, okay? So I need to eat fruits and vegetables. We all know what nutrition looks like. But I think we ignore the fact that our souls require nutrition. And here's what I would say. I would say as dangerous as physical dehydration is, and it is. It was actually dangerous that day for a bunch of 16-year-olds to be that hot and thirsty. But what I would tell you today is as dangerous as you not drinking enough water could be, it pales in comparison to you living this life with a thirsty soul. A perpetual thirsty soul will lead you to disaster. Okay? A perpetually hungry body will lead you to McDonald's. And while it may hasten death one day for you, it normally doesn't come immediately. But let me tell you what, you can't imagine what can happen in your life if you start drinking and eating from the wrong spot for your soul. It'll lead you down all sorts of roads. And Jesus says you don't have to do that. You come to me. Jesus, write it down, is living water. We must drink of him. And that's what he was saying. He was looking at a crowd of people. That crowd was all about the religious symbolism and the rites. And they thought every year we're going to do this thing. And that's going to be what we need. But those same people were hungry and thirsty every year. And he was looking at his own people, the Jewish people, and he was saying, guys, all of this was just pointing to me. Come to me. If you're thirsty, come to me and drink. Now this brings up a point because I have to go, okay, I got you. How do you drink of Jesus then? Like if I'm telling you guys today, you need to drink of Jesus, it could totally change your life. And that you may be walking around with a level of spiritual dehydration, and I think we all do at times. And I'm telling you how dangerous that is, and you go, I'm in. Well then how do you drink of Jesus? And funny enough, he tells you how to do it right there in the text. He says, I want you to drink of me. And then he tells you how. Anyone who believes in me. Drinking is believing, everyone. You can write that down anywhere you want. Drinking is believing. That's what he's saying. He's trying to give you a thought here. He's saying believing in me, and not just believe one time like unto salvation, but to keep believing in Jesus. And in order to understand that, I brought this chair up here because I want to tell you the word that he's using there. And this is, have you ever had these things that just unlocked truth for you? When I understood this word in the Bible that's used many, many times and understood how different it is from our English version of it, it blew me away. Okay, so the word he's using here that's used several times is the word pestua. Everyone say pestua. All right, kind of like the pasta I had last night. It's kind of got that vibe, all right? Pestua. Now, pestua, believe, Greek idea, is different than English because when we say I believe in English, I think we normally mean I acknowledge. Yes, I acknowledge that. But Jesus is saying something different because he's saying if you believe in me, it's like drinking of me. And pestua literally means, you ready? The word pestua in the Bible, when he says believe, it means to sit in him. It means you take the weight of your life and you place it on the strength of Jesus and the truth of Jesus. And what this means, now it all makes sense, is that when Jesus said in another place, come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you, what did he say? Rest. Okay, so this is what he means when he says, believe on me. This is what drinking of Jesus looks like. Let me tell you what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like, man, that is a really nice chair. That's our English word means that. We think we believe when we go, nice chair. Maybe we walk all the way around it. I really like that chair. Maybe we get to where we know a lot about the chair. Hey, you may not know. I know all about this chair. It's made of this really Moroccan plastic. And it has this, this is a special type of steel that we got from another special place, IKEA. I can be an expert about the chair and not sit in the chair. I am familiar with the chair. I know a lot about the chair. I can tell you all about the chair. But until, Jesus says, that's all good. But until I trust the weight of my life to the strength of the chair, I've not rested in it. See, what I'm doing now is I'm resting in the chair. How many of you, just raise your hand, when you came in today, you actually examined the chair you're sitting in right now before you sat in it. You made sure it could hold your body up. Did anyone look at it and go, you know what? This could get embarrassing if this can't hold me up. I'm really trusting these people here. Anybody? You should have, because Pastor Scott and I talked last week, and there's 4 chairs that at any moment are going to give way. We've unbolted them. I'm just kidding. We only did 1, 2. Oh, okay. So here we go. They're all fine, and the truth is you did not. You did not. What did you do when you came in? You have a certain relationship with the chair you're sitting in right now physically. You trusted it. You trusted that chair. You're sitting in it right now. You're trusting that chair. Jesus says in a spiritual sense, you're going to have to learn to trust him. And that's what resting in the gospel looks like. And that's what Jesus says here. And he says, if you're thirsty, learn to believe in me. Not just acknowledge me, not just know about me, but learn to rest in me. Learn to sit in my truth. When you're anxious, run to me and sit in the chair. And he does not say that the chair will make you work harder and that the chair will make you achieve and the chair will make you figure things out. He says, no, when you come to me and believe in me, I give you rest. This is what we mean when we say rest in the gospel. This is why believers are not supposed to worry. We're not supposed to be anxious. We're not supposed to be running like everyone else. There's some kind of calm about a believer. And why is that? Because we have believed upon Jesus. We're trusting him. And if he's not real, then we're hitting the ground. Our whole life is resting on the fact that no matter what we face, Jesus is real and true today, tomorrow, and forever. And that's what we believe. And this gives not just me rest. Jesus gives my soul rest, the deepest part of who I am. And then the last thing he promises, he says, if you will sit in me, he says, I'll give you rest. And he says, I will make living water flow out of you. This is crazy, the way we make the biggest difference. And I'm an aggressive achiever kind of person. What's the Enneagram thing? The Egyptian, whatever they call that thing. I'm a 3. I'm like a 3. They did the test on me. They were like, if we took you as a 3 and poured gasoline on you and lit you on fire, you're that 3. You're like, you know? So guys like me, this is hard. Because the Lord, I believe, looks at guys like me, and maybe you're some of these people, and he says, hey, I'm way more interested in what I'm doing in you than you're doing out there for me. He says, I know what you're measuring, Chris. You're measuring all the things you're doing for me. I want to know what you're letting me do in you. And he's forced me over and over again to get in the chair. He's forced me to keep score different in my life. Because the other way, my way of keeping score, it'll kill me spiritually. And some of you are there today. And I'm not saying to not work hard for Jesus, and I hope the next time I get to come to your church, if they ever invite me back, but I'm hoping. This is kind of a tryout today. I would love to see y'all 3 times this size just continue to reach your city. But here's what I hope more than anything today. I hope that you will learn to rest in Jesus. Because Jesus says if you will rest in him, he will make living water flow out of you. It'll be so obvious to the world around you that you're different, that they'll be attracted to you, because there's a calm and a peace about a Christian who rests in Jesus that's very magnetic. Because the world simply doesn't see that. You could write this down. Jesus is living water. We must learn to drink of him. And then finally, you can't offer others what you don't have yourself. It's going to be hard to tell the world Jesus is everything to you if you're totally anxious and worried about everything. If you're totally worn out and on the edge all the time, it's going to be real hard for people to go, yeah, I want what you have. But if you're really believing and resting in Jesus, it can change everything. Hey, in closing, how many golfers do we have in the room? Any golfers? You like to golf? Got a few? Like literally one golfer in the whole room? Boston doesn't have golf courses? Okay, so I played baseball my whole life. And baseball is like swing hard, tense. Getting your hips through all this. And then I tried to play golf. And it was bad, y'all, like really bad, like dangerous. I've taken out windshields with my slice. I've yelled "for" at other people on a golf course so many times thinking I'm about to kill them accidentally. Finally, I went to a coach, a guy who knew golf, and he was like, dude, you've got to relax. I said, relax, I'm trying to hit a ball. He was like, no, no, no. He said, you grew up trying to hit a ball that was coming at you 90 miles an hour. He said, this ball's not even moving. It's just sitting there. I was like, I hadn't thought about that. He said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get everything loose. And he said, I want you to trust me one time. He said, I want you to take a deep breath. And he said, I want you to just let your arms hang. And then he handed me a golf club. And he said, I want you to grab that golf club so softly like you're holding a little bird that you don't want to hurt. He said, I want you to hold it so softly you think it may fly out of your hand. He said, you ready? Yep. He said, take a deep breath. And he said, now just swing real light, nice at the ball. And I'll never forget the moment I hit the ball and it went further than I'd ever hit a golf ball. I was totally relaxed. And he looked at me like he was a magician and he said, see? There it is. Just do that every time. I've never done that again, but that day it was great. No, what it taught me is this. It taught me that the golf club is designed to do the work for me. It's a tool. I just need to let the weight of the clay. It does not need my help. I'm just getting the club to the ball. And what I've learned in my Christian walk in closing today is that Jesus' grip on me is far greater than mine on him. And that if I'll learn to rest in who he is, he can do more in me and through me than I can on my own. Far, far more. And that's my hope today. I came from Alabama to say to you, roll tide. But I really came to say to you and invite you to sit in Jesus, to run to him, to drink deeply of him, and to be satisfied in him. I want to pray for you, and then Pastor Scott's going to come. Jesus, thank you for this day, and I pray that you would have your hand on this incredible church, and I pray that you'll continue to do great things in and through them. And as we respond to you now in worship in the greatest of ways, that you would be honored. In Jesus' name, amen.